They are on opposite sides of the street, and the street is in the city of Rome. On one side of the street is St. John Lateran Basilica, where you will find a large statue of St. Peter, the leader of the apostles. That statue is carved out of marble about 14 feet tall, and is a marvelous, magnificent image of one of the greatest leaders of the church. St. Peter stands there with the keys to the kingdom on his left hand, and his right hand is pointing towards the altar in the basilica. But if you cross the street and enter into a much smaller building, you will find a smaller statue, maybe about 6 feet tall. It's just inside the main entrance on a pedestal to the right, at the bottom of a staircase. And if you look at that statue, at first what you see from the front is Jesus. His face is full of compassion and maybe a touch of disappointment. And leaning in towards Jesus is Judas. Judas has one arm reaching out towards Jesus, ready to embrace him and kiss him. This is the moment of betrayal that we just read in the Matthew's version of the Passion. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Judas is trying to look like a man in love with Christ. But if you take 2 steps to the right, you can see the rest of the statue of Judas. And then you can see his back. You can see that Judas, in his left hand, is holding the bag of silver coins that he has just received for betraying Jesus. And so on one hand, he's reaching out to embrace Jesus. Now on the other hand, he's hiding in the bag of coins. And this really is, for me, one of the most powerful images that I've ever seen. And on one level, it connects with me because I struggle with my own life, something that I witnessed in that statue. And maybe you do too. I would like to think of myself as someone who is focused on Jesus. I would like to think of myself as someone who is striving to love Jesus. I'm reaching out to Jesus in my prayer, and then with my hands as I serve others. And I'm a guy who wants to embrace and kiss Jesus. And so part of me looks like Judas on the side of the statue from the front, reaching out to kiss Jesus, trying my best to love Jesus fully. But I also know that sadly, I'm often like Judas with one hand behind my back. And I'm trying to hold on to something for myself. I'm trying to pretend that I'm not betraying the one that I love. I'm trying to hide something from the Lord or from others or even from myself. And my friends, the things that we try to hide often have control over us. The things that we try to keep hidden hurt us the most. And as they say in a 12-step addiction program, we are only as sick as our secrets. And so like the statue of Judas, many of us, me for sure, live our lives with tension. On the one hand, we want to embrace and we want to follow Jesus with our whole heart. But we know that there are still pieces of our lives that we try to keep hidden in the dark. In what we have done and in what we have failed to do, we betray our Lord Jesus. And that's why we need this Holy Week. That's why we need to focus carefully on all the readings for this week leading up to Easter. The readings of Holy Week invite us to confess and to name the fact that we are all sinners. The Gospels reassure us that it is in the dying and the rising of Jesus that we experience the forgiveness of every failure. In the cross of Jesus, our betrayers are overcome by the one who was betrayed. He died to forgive us and to lead us to new life. Now, if you will listen carefully to the Passion reading, you may have caught something else. Judas was not the only one standing there with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Together with Judas was Peter, James, and John. And Matthew tells us that all of them ran away. And isn't that a kind of betrayal? Matthew also tells us that Peter was given 3 opportunities to admit that he knows Jesus. But 3 times before the cock crows, Peter denies Jesus. Now, isn't that a kind of betrayal? So why is Judas called the betrayer and Peter is called the first pope? What's up with that? They both betrayed Jesus, each in their own way. Why is it that Judas gets a statue in Rome showing the supreme moment of his failure, and yet right across the same street, Peter is portrayed with flowing robes, with the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and most of all, with 0% body fat? What's up with that? The men on both sides of that street in Rome let Jesus down. Yet one is honored and one is called the betrayer. Why? If you were listening to the Passion carefully, you heard that when Judas realizes that he has betrayed the Lord, Judas convinces himself that he can never be forgiven. He concludes that Christ could never love him again. Judas believes that God could never forgive a sinner like him. And so Judas takes his own life. He gives up too soon. Judas gives up on God too soon. And on the other hand, Peter, he knows that he has betrayed the Lord. He knows that he weeps bitterly. But Peter doesn't give up so quickly. He wonders if it might be possible that God will give him another chance to experience forgiveness and new life. Peter had every right to think that Jesus might give up on him, but he waits to see. And on Easter morning, his waiting is fulfilled. And he realizes with God, something new is always possible, that forgiveness can happen, that hope is real, that God never gives up on anyone, no matter what the circumstances. Like Peter and Judas both, we begin Holy Week knowing that we are sinners. Sometimes we sin through our actions. Sometimes we sin through our lack of actions. But in all the celebrations of this Holy Week, we have the chance to encounter the one who refuses to give up on us. So on one side of the Roman street, we find Peter, the denier, who still found hope. On the other side of the street, Judas, the betrayer, who lost hope. Peter, the sinner, who experienced forgiveness. Judas, the sinner, who died thinking that there was no forgiveness. Now, which side of the street do you want to be on?